Hi everyone, Stepan here. Today I'm going to show you a game I'm really happy with and I'm really proud of because I played like I don't normally play. I played attacking chess, which is weird for me, and also I've deliberately decided to go into a type of position which I don't normally like, which is an open attacking tactical position. I usually try to avoid those, and I like positional chess in slow positions. In this game I was facing a guy I know, rated above 2100. We've never played in a tournament game before, but we've played a lot of blitz chess and like casual games. Preparing for this game was tough because there were several possibilities. The two openings I was expecting the most were the Benoni and the King's Indian. I wasn't going to play the London, I wanted to go into sharp mainline stuff, as I said. And also the Benko. So Benoni, Benko or King's Indian. He plays stuff with c5 and plays sharp openings. So I was preparing for all of that. I started with pawn d4, and after knight f6, c4, c5 was played. So we are either going to go into a Benoni or into a Benko. After d5, he played d6. Now, this wasn't a modern Benoni. He does play e6 sometimes as well. So this is the Hromatka, or the Benoni with the delayed e6. Knight c3, g6, e4, bishop g7. This is all very standard stuff. Knight f3 castles, h3 is one of the main moves. You can also play bishop d3. And now e6, bishop d3. And this is a highly theoretical position which I've studied extensively for a week before our game, among other positions. And he has one game from this position in the database where he played knight bd7. Knight bd7 is a mistake. It's not a big mistake. It's still a sort of a theoretical move, but it avoids the main lines which are fine for black. And he did play it in this game as well. And I asked him after the game, why did he play knight bd7? He said, I didn't want to go into the main line stuff, especially not with the black pieces. That's what he said. Now the main line goes ed5, ed5, and now rook e8, where white plays bishop e3, black plays bishop h6, or can take on e3, and now castles, and takes, and people continue queen e7 here. It's not good to take on e3, because white gets huge initiative after queen d2, and rook e7, and something like queen f4, where black is under a lot of pressure. And this is, according to the engine, almost winning for white. So those are the main lines where if queen e7 is played here, black is perfectly fine. White continues e4. The position should be slightly better for white, as are all Benoni games. But he played knight bd7, and I'd prepared this line, and we are actually following the game he played previously, which I knew about. So d6, f6, these are the best moves, and bishop g5. White should have an edge, like plus 0.8, plus 0.9. And in the game he played before, he played knight e5. His opponent only drew, but knight e5 is a big mistake, and white should be much better after knight takes, pawn takes. This should be a +2 advantage. And his opponent did have an advantage, but didn't manage to win. In our game, he played a6, and here I made the biggest mistake of the game. I made a move that's thematic, that makes sense in this position visually, and if you know the Benoni, but it doesn't make sense here. I played a4. Now a4 is a bad move. a4 wastes time, and I don't need to prevent b5, it's already been prevented. The reason I played a4 was not to weaken e4 in the future, which may sound weird, but if my pieces get distracted away from e4, maybe I'm going to lose the e4 pawn. So I was expecting something like queen c7 and knight h5, which is exactly what happened. And in that case, I would have to go bishop e2, which is also what happened. But the mistake is, a4 is a mistake because e4 is then not attacked by the knight. And even if he can play bishop c3, bc3, there is no knight e4 because the knight is on h5. So a4 is a waste of time. What I should have played is simply castles or queen d2, which are normal moves. But okay, a4. The idea behind a6 is not only to play b5, but maybe to go b6, bishop b7. Okay, queen c7 castles and knight h5. And in this position, I played a good move, and I'm really happy with my move. I could go queen d2, reinforcing the f4 square. However, I was afraid of rook takes f3 in some positions. So for example, queen d2, rook f3 immediately, followed by knight e5, was unclear to me. I can go bishop e2 and defend, and this knight is going to reroute to d4, and I just couldn't assess that position. What I saw was that if the knight lands on d4, d6 isn't going to be a weakness anymore. So that's what I didn't like. So I played a better move, bishop e2. Now bishop e2 not only prevents rook f3, but it also prevents knight f4 in most positions, because I'm now threatening bishop e7, winning on the spot. And this is a threat black has to deal with. If black plays a nothing move, then bishop e7 wins. Black resigns here. Either loses the exchange or loses the d6 pawn with tempo, and black's position collapses. So against bishop e2, he played rook f7, defending against bishop e7. Now queen d2, finally reinforcing the f4 square. And here he again played knight e5, same pattern as in the previous game. But here it's even worse, because after knight e5, bishop e5, I can play bishop h5. And after gh5, both kings are open, you could say. But the bishop on c8 isn't good, and it's going to take time to make this bishop good. On the other hand, h5 is a permanent weakness, h6 is a permanent square for my bishop, and if I could get something onto the g3 square, I could start an attack. Moreover, I'm able to play f4 with tempo at some point, gaining space and threatening f5. I didn't want to play f4 here immediately because I wasn't sure whether my bishop should be on the outer side of my pawn chain. I wanted to reinforce the d4 square, so I played bishop e3 first, followed by f4. But I could have gone f4 immediately as well. It's not bad. I think the engine says f4 immediately is better, but bishop e3 is also fine. Okay, so if I had played f4 straight away, then bishop d4, king h2, maybe, I don't know what to suggest here, but maybe f5 is coming, and it's not easy to prevent. So for example, bishop g7, f5, ef5, and now knight d5 is just crushing, because I'm threatening. If I can take on f5 once the queen moves, and then I'm threatening knight e7 winning. So f4 would have been strong. But bishop e3, bishop d7, f4, and here my opponent took on c3, which surprised me. The bishop on e5 is black's main defensive piece. And my knight has a future if I get to play f5, but still, I was unsure of this decision. It's not a good decision. Queen takes, and now bishop c6. Attacking the pawn on e4, I played queen d3 defending. Rook d8, defending the pawn on d6, and here was my longest think of the game. You can pause the video here and try to come up with a plan for white. It took me a while to figure this out. Okay, I was really proud of this move during the game. And it's not a bad move, it's a good move, leads to a complicated position, complicated attacking position, but it's not the best move by far. The best move here is f5, which according to the engine, black really cannot defend after f5. It's that bad. The advantage is not huge, it's like plus 1.5, but after a while the engine changes its mind and thinks that it's almost winning for white. So ef5 has to be played. ef5, and now there are a few options. You can play d5, or you can play queen e7, for example. If you play d5 straight away, then bishop g5, and this is overwhelming. And if you play queen e7, attacking the bishop, then bishop h6, and after something like queen e4, queen g3 check, and king h8, this again is very, very hard for black to defend. My other rook is coming to e1, and maybe something is coming towards black's king. Visually, at least, even though it seems double-edged, I'd prefer to be white. But yeah, that's f5. But queen e7 is really hard to find here, I think. Queen e7 is a really hard move to play, with the idea of queen e4 and pressure here. I think most people would still play d5. Okay, what I played is a forcing move, which looks weird, but is actually very interesting. Bishop d2. Now, bishop d2 is a forcing move that forces d5. If black doesn't play d5, then white plays bishop c3, and the game is just about over, because bishop c3 and queen g3 check, and f5 is going to be crushing. So d5 has to be played. He did play d5. And my calculation before bishop d2 was c takes, e takes, and e5. And of course, black has play in the center. I have play on the king side. However, strategically, if I push f5, I'm going to win the game. That's what I thought at the time. So if white manages to play f5, there will be no stopping these pawns. So I thought before I played bishop d2, when I was assessing this position, okay, I have a clear goal in mind. If I can play f5, I win. So I went for this. Philip played d4. I went rook f2, just defending in anticipation of rook g7. And here, he made the losing move, believe it or not. Again, this position is extremely hard to play for black. The engine doesn't say white is winning yet, but it's struggling to find a plan. The move he played loses immediately. He played bishop d5. And bishop d5 is way too slow. The idea behind it is both to, at some point, be able to play c4, but also to block, to set up a blockade on f5 with the bishop. And that's way too slow. Instead of that, if you go rook d to f8, for example, which seemed logical to me at the time, I was expecting this, this loses even worse. The idea is to set up a blockade with rook f5. I just go rook e1, and if rook f5, then queen c4 check. And I just pick up the pawn on c5 and keep pushing. So this doesn't work. The engine plays king h8 as the only move that keeps black in the game. This is an extremely hard move to find. And the follow-up by white should be rook c1, attacking the pawn on c5, and now queen e7. b6 may be better, defending, but now queen e2. And black basically has to give up the pawn on h5. And again, white should be better, but not immediately winning. Philip played bishop d5, and I simply continued rook e1. To be honest, I thought I was going to win in a couple of moves from this position, because I couldn't see a way to prevent f5. If bishop e6, I just go f5. He played rook e8 here, which does not prevent f5, so I played f5. Of course, if rook takes, then queen g3 check picks up the rook. So f5 has been played. This, in my mind, was game over. These pawns are rolling forward. The engine says +6 after f5. He played rook g7, which forces him to give up the exchange after bishop h6. I've given up the pawn on e5. The same tactic doesn't work anymore. If rook e5, I don't have queen g3, of course, but on rook e5, I win the exchange. So rook e5 was played, rook e5, queen e5, bishop g7, king g7. And now the end was kind of forcing and kind of quick. I played f6 check, king g8, rook f5, a triple attack on the bishop, queen, and the pawn, queen e1 check, king h2, and bishop c6 was played here. This is now a forced checkmate. If you want a puzzle, it's a mate in 8. I did not find it. I played like normal human moves and won with a slightly inferior continuation. Queen c4 check, king f8, queen c5 check, king f7, and rook e5, threatening a mate in 2 or the queen. Of course, black should give up the queen, but Philip played queen f2. Allowed a mate on the board, queen e7 check, king g6, and queen g7 checkmate. So this is how the game ended. Again, I'm really happy with the fact that I did not try to avoid complication, both when preparing and when the game started. So I went into what he usually plays. I went into sharp openings I've never played against before. This was my first game against the Benoni ever. And yeah, I did manage to win. So I was really, really, really happy after this game. Still, it was a hard position to defend for black after bishop d2. I think bishop d2 is interesting because the position is double-edged, and if two engines are playing, maybe black defends, but these two pawns after the variation with d5, cd, ed, and e5, for a human, preventing f5 proved impossible. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you liked the game. Let me know what you think and stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.